the Haftorah that we read this Shabbos from the book of Amos, chapter 9. It's amazing that the Parsha, the Haftorah, always speaks to current events, and we just celebrated Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's amazing that Yom Ha'atzmaut, this Haftorah from book of Amos 2,700 years ago, is always read. Amos chapter 9. And he says something incredible. He says, V'shafti et shivut ami Yisrael. I will bring back to captivity my people Israel. When he said this, the Jewish people are not in captivity. Ubanim orim neshamot, and they will rebuild desolate cities. When he said this 28 years ago, the cities were not desolate. They said, hey prophet, what are you talking about? Take a pill and lie down. The cities are not desolate. What do you mean rebuild desolate cities and you'll live there? V'natu chamim, you're going to plant vineyards, v'shotu ad yainam, and you'll drink the wine, v'asu ganot, v'achlot priyam, you're going to have beautiful gardens and eat delicious fruit. Unatatem al admatam, and God said, I will replant them back on their land. Again, when Amos said this 2,800 years ago, David, nobody was disconnected. They were all living here. So what does it mean? I will replant them on their land, and they'll never again be kicked out of their land, which I give them, says Hashem. Again, Amos chapter 9. It's always read the week of what? Yom Ha'atzmaut. Kawinky dinky? Because when he said this thousands of years ago, nobody knew what he was talking about. The Jews were not kicked out. Jerusalem, the temple, was standing in all of its glory. The cities were not desolate. So obviously, he's speaking about what? Now. Even though he said it 2,700 years ago. It's amazing how the Haftorah always speaks to what? Current events. Mark Twain was here in the 1850s. Yeah. He said he never saw such a barren moonscape as... Now, I live in Pisgah Zev. There's pictures before and after. Until 1973, before the Yom Kippur War, when Jordan controlled Pisgah Zev, it looked, Chanoch, like a moonscape. In 1973 and on, the moonscape is now literally a Garden of Eden. Pisgah Zev, and not just Pisgah. Incredible how we are living the prophecy. Yes. And those Jews that don't live here are missing out on the greatest Jewish miracle in the past 2,000 years. Don't you want to be a part of it? How could you remain in Borough Park? The greatest miracle in the 2,000 years. Literally, Amos 9, what he said then, which didn't make any sense then, because the Jews were not barren, they were not desolate, the cities were not destroyed. Obviously, he's talking about what? Now. It's now or never. Amazing prophecy. How could you not be part of it? To remain behind and miss the train of Geula? I just cannot figure it out. The Geula train. The Geula train. It's pretty amazing, right? Now, there's a double header. This week we read Acharey Mod Kedoshim. Again, this Parsha, Acharey Mod Kedoshim, is always read the week of Yom HaZikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut. Always. The Parsha speaks about the tragedy of what? Of Aaron's children who were struck dead. Opening day of the Mishkan, the height of the glory and joy. And what happens? Two of his sons, what? Lay dead at his feet. That's life is a roller coaster. From joy to sorrow, from sorrow to joy, you can't have one without the other. Amazing. Parsha of the week, Yom HaZikaron, Yom Ha'atzmaut, joy and tragedy, sorrow and joy. That's what life is, Nechama. It's a roller coaster. Now, why did these two righteous sons of Aaron die? Why? So the Zohar explains they were so heavenly minded, they were no earthly good. Should I repeat that? Yeah. They were so heavenly minded that they were no earthly good. They refused to get married. I can't get married. I'm married to God. I can't marry a woman and have children, have responsibilities, change diapers and take out the garbage. That's not for me. I'm too holy. If you're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good, that's not Judaism. Remember that song? Yeah. Sarah? Earth angel, earth angel. Oh, wow, yeah. I'm dating myself. God wants, David, earth angels. The first mitzvah in the Torah is to get married and have babies and change diapers and take out the garbage and help your wife. That's the way to become holy. Say what? But they said no. We say it every day in the Shema Yehuda. Ki mei hashemayim al haaretz. In the Shema, the tafkid of a Jew is to bring heaven down on earth. Ki mei hashemayim al haaretz. To bring down heaven on earth. To sanctify all aspects of Kedusha. That's the tafkid of a Jew. But these guys were out to lunch. They missed the boat, right? So, Yehuda, I wish Avital was here because I want to tell her, Hareyat mukudeshed li. That's what you say to your wife. Hareyat mukudeshed li. What are you saying? The husband says to the wife doesn't talk. Why? She's speechless? We believe in women's lib. Hareyat mukudeshed li. You know, why does the husband break the glass under the chuppah, not the wife? It's the last time he'll get a chance to put his foot down. So he breaks the glass, not her. Right, Chanoch? But Hareyat mukudeshed li, the husband says to the Kala, because of you I am sanctifying my Yetzer Hara. Hareyat mukudeshed li. Because of you, my passion, my sexual desire will become what? Holy. Say what? Say what? That's what the Chosn says to the Kala. And these guys were so, they were too holy for their own good. Not the way of you. God doesn't want you to be too holy. God wants you to sanctify every aspect of life, even the most mundane. That's what Judaism is all about. Then the Parsha speaks about probably the strangest Parsha in the Torah, the Azazel, the scapegoat. On Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, we push a goat over a cliff. So long, sucker. What do you want from the poor goat? Now, what's even stranger isn't that one goat goes for Hashem and the other goat goes off a cliff. And they both have to be identical, same color, same height, same size. What's it all about? What's it all about? Well, there's many different meanings. But one meaning is both goats die. One gets slaughtered and burned in the Mizbeach, and the other one goes over a cliff. Everybody dies. But when you're alive, who do you choose to dedicate your life to? Hashem or Chas v'Shalom Azazel? We have to decide where we are headed. Do we want to dedicate our lives to Hashem? Or Chas v'Shalom, we have free will to go the other way. Same life. The same bricks can build a chesed house, a yeshiva house, or build a discotheque. The same bricks. What are you going to do with the bricks? Build a house of Torah, a house of chesed, or build what? A house for what? LGBT community. Ligbit? What does Ligbit stand for? Lubavitch, Ger, bells and tells, no? Ligbit? We have to decide, right? All of life is a sacrifice. We can sacrifice for God or Chas v'Shalom for what? For Satan. Get a life or waste a life. We have to decide what we're going to do with our lives. The same internet. You can go to rabbisprecher.com or chas v'sholom to the Schmutz sites. We have to decide, right? The same internet, the same goat. We decide. Eitz hadas tov v'ra, the tree of knowledge, is knowledge good or evil? We decide. That's one of the ideas here of what? Of the Azazel. Powerful message over here. Of the Azazel. Then the Torah here goes on and tells us about all the abominations that the Canaanites did, and therefore they got kicked out of the land of Israel. And God warns us, do not do the abominations of the Canaanites, so that you too should not be kicked out. Nachmanides says something amazing. The sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah, they were no worse than San Francisco or Las Vegas. So why were they destroyed? Says Nachmanides, if Sodom and Gomorrah were located in Las Vegas, they wouldn't have been destroyed. Eretz Yisrael cannot tolerate immorality. Other cities, God will let it go and you pay later. But Eretz Yisrael has a special Kedusha, which will not tolerate immorality, which will vomit out the sinners. So therefore, Sodom and Gomorrah are located in the Holy Land, and therefore they had to be destroyed. If they were located where, in Frisco or in Vegas, they wouldn't have been destroyed. They would have paid later in the afterlife. So when we live in Eretz Yisrael, we have a special responsibility to act what? With more Kedusha. Because we're living in God's living room. We are living in the palace of the King. So we have to be very, very careful. Now the Torah warns us in this week's Parshat, like the deeds of the land of Egypt that I took you out, don't do. Like the deeds of the land of Canaan, which I brought you, don't do. Rashi says that the most corrupt, immoral nation at that time of the Exodus was what? Egypt and Canaan. Now, isn't that strange? God brought us to Egypt, and we were there for 210 years. And Rashi says the Egyptians were the most immoral and corrupt people, and he brought us to the land of Canaan, which also happens to be on the all-time hit parade of the most lowlifes, immoral. The top two were Egypt and the land of Canaan. And that's exactly where we came from and we went to. What's the game plan? Why keep us in the most immoral, corrupt country for 200 years and bring us to the most immoral, corrupt country, the land of Canaan, the immoral, the abominable Canaanites? What's the cheshbon? What's the cheshbon? That why did we come from Egypt, the most immoral country, and God brought us here where the Canaanites and the other nations were the most immoral, corrupt? What's the game plan? What's God thinking? What do you think? Says the great Baal Soloveitchik, you ever go to West 47th Street in Manhattan to buy diamonds? Never went there? Manhattan, the diamond center of the world. Want to buy your sweetheart a diamond bracelet, a diamond pendant. He says the diamond is always displayed against a black background. Why is that? Diamond is displayed against a black background, says the Rav, to appreciate the brilliance. Where does the diamond sparkle and shine the most, Avi? When you have the contrast against a black background. Says Rav Soloveitchik, this is God's idea. The Jewish people think that everybody's like them. You have to know what you are against the background. You're a diamond. You sparkle. Look at little Israel, a sea of tranquility in a jungle of savages. Little Israel, surrounded by savages and wildebeests. So to appreciate what the Jewish people have, they have to have been where? In a place to see how the other lives. To appreciate the beauty of Judaism, says Rav Soloveitchik. Our diamond can sparkle and shine when they're displayed against a black background. So to appreciate our brilliance, that the rest of the world is not like us, and therefore we're so hated. That's why we're so hated, right, Masha? Yeah. We're the leader in everything, high-tech, smartphones, dumb phones, you name it. When there's a disaster in the world, who's the first on the ground? In Haiti or wherever? Ruti, Israel. To help even our enemies. Taking in thousands of Syrian wounded. Would they take us in? The shoe was on the other foot. So to appreciate our brilliance, we have to see how the savages live. That we are different and special. We have to know that. To appreciate that. So in this week's Parsha, the Torah says, do not copy the ways of the non-Jew. What does that mean, Maddie? I cannot wear suspenders because non-Jews wear suspenders. What does it mean, Sarah? Right? Leviticus 18, Pasuk 3, do not go in the ways of the non-Jew. What does that mean? I can't wear boxer shorts. I like boxer shorts. Because the non-Jew wears it? David. What does it mean? So thank God we have an oral Torah. And the oral Torah tells us that this prohibition only applies in two categories. If it's attached to paganism or promiscuity. If the way of the goy, he does a certain thing because it's tied to paganism or idolatry, or if it smacks of pritzut, how do you say that, pritzut? Promiscuity or immorality, then it's under this ban. But if the custom that the non-Jew does is not connected to paganism, it's not connected to promiscuity or morality, then there's no problem for a Jew to what? To imitate it. Is that clear? Okay? So that's what we have to know. We have an oral Torah. So that's the restrictions. If what they do is connected to paganism, like having a Christmas tree, right? That was a pagan rite. Or to wear what? Torn jeans to walk around, right? That's promiscuity, right? They let it all hang out. That's how they walk around. And the more tears the jean has, the more expensive it is. It's just crazy, right? A double header. Acharey mot Kedoshim. Acharey mot Kedoshim. The second Parsha we read is Parshas Kedoshim, Leviticus 19. God says, you shall be holy because I am holy. That's a pretty tall order, don't you think, Bikimia? God said, Leviticus 19, you be holy because what? I am holy. How do you become holy? Well, that's the very next verse, Sarah. Honor your father and your mother. How does a Jew attain Kedusha? By going off to a monastery and contemplating his navel? Respect your parents. That's what Torah says. Honor and revere your parents. Observe the Shabbat. And that's how a Jew what? Attains what? Kedusha. That's how a Jew attains Kedusha. Very interesting. Now these parshas are always read right after what? Pesach. On Pesach, everybody is into Kedusha of the holiday. But after the holiday is over, you're supposed to take some of that Kedusha with you for the road, Lillian. Take some of that Kedusha from Pesach. Take it along for the road. Save some of it. Save some of it. After every Chag, we should be a little bit better. We should take some of that Kedusha, I think, and bottle it.
Save with the matzah.
What?
Save some matzah.
Save some matzah. Not just the matzah. It's the spiritual elevation that the soul experienced. That we should take that along also with us for the rest of the year as well. So it's amazing how to become holy. The Torah says right away, honor your parents. Honor your parents, and that's the way a person what has Kedusha. Pretty amazing, right? Yes?
What about when your parents are nipped?
So, that's a great question. What about your parents are gone? The only mitzvah you can do beyond death is to honor your parents. Other mitzvahs stop with death. But honoring your parents, remember that ever-ready battery? The bunny keeps on going and going and going. So how do you honor your parents when they're alive? Take them out to dinner, right? You call them, you visit, you shop. How do you take them out when they're gone? How do you visit them? How do you honor them when they're gone? By dedicating a Torah shiur in their memory, by saying Kaddish, by giving tzedakah. You're honoring them even after what? Death. And the Chai Adam says something incredible. The Chai Adam, Rabbi Avraham Danzik, who was a Mechitna, the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon son married his daughter, Rabbi Avraham Danzik. He writes something incredible in the Chai Adam, that in a way a person can honor his parents after they're gone, even on a higher, stronger level than when they're here. So his idea, I'll put it in my language, okay? How do you honor your parents when they're alive in this world? You take them out for lunch. You take them to a Chinese restaurant. In 12 minutes, they're hungry again. Chinese food, a lot of monoglyceride, whatever. Okay, 15 minutes. If you take them out to a steak restaurant, in a few hours later, they're hungry again. The pleasure you give your parents in the physical world is temporary. You visit them, they're happy. When you leave them, they're sad again. So any pleasure you give your parents in the physical world, by definition, is only what? Temporary. But when you honor your parents in Olam Haba, by dedicating a shiur in their memory, or giving tzedakah, saying Kaddish, the hana that they get is not like a Chinese lunch. It stays part of their neshama forever. That pleasure, that nachas ruach that the neshama attains, knowing that the child of theirs dedicated a Torah shiur, gave tzedakah, said Kaddish, that hana remains part of the neshama forever. It doesn't wear off like a physical hana. And the Chafetz Chaim goes a step further. He says that Kodesh Baruch Hu says, Gemara in Nida says that every human being has three parents: God, Father, and Mother. Gemara Nida, page 31, Tractate Kedoshim. God supplies the soul, and the human parents supply what? The body. So since every human being has three parents, so Chafetz Chaim says, when you honor one of the three, you honor the other two, and vice versa. The verse in this week's Parsha says it. Honor your parents, observe the Shabbat. What does A got to do with B? How do you honor human parents? By taking them out to dinner, right? How do you honor your heavenly parent? By observing the Shabbat. But Chafetz Chaim said it's a package deal. Every time you honor your human parent, you're also honoring your divine parent. And every time you dishonor your human parents, you're also dishonoring the divine parent. So according to the Chafetz Chaim, every time you honor your parents, you're also honoring what? God. Every time you observe the Shabbat, whom are you honoring?
Parents and God.
Beautiful. It's a package deal, says the Chafetz Chaim. You see, when you eat kosher and you observe Shabbat, you're honoring one of the three, you're honoring the other two as well. So every time a Jew keeps the Torah, he's honoring what? His parents, three. The divine one and his human parents. So every time you do any mitzvah, not just dedicating a shiur, says the Chafetz Chaim, you're honoring God and you're honoring your human parents in Gan Eden. And chas v'sholom, vice versa. Every time you break the Shabbos or eat non-kosher, you're dishonoring all three. Chafetz Chaim says so because it's a package deal. Buy one, get three.
It's a reflection.
But again, we have to know, Nechama, that if we are honoring our parents now in Olam Haba on a higher level, our parents are proud of us that we are studying Torah and doing mitzvot, and they're getting a fargenugen. How do you say that? A fargenugen? Fargenugen. How do you say that in English? Nachat ruach.
The parents were abusive.
What if the parents were abusive? You have to go to my website. I have an article there. Must we honor abusive parents? So that's a very, very difficult question. No one has to stick around for the abuse. You have to take off, but you can't answer back. If they want to harm you physically, you have to protect yourself. Otherwise, verbal abuse, you don't have to take it. You take off, but you don't answer back. Very difficult. Very difficult.
Don't you honor your parents by the way you behave, the way you act, and like every day? Besides,
That's what he said.
So you still
Every time you are doing any mitzvah, you're honoring all three. That's a Chafetz Chaim's chidush. And therefore, Leviticus 19, verse 3, this week's Parsha, you want to be holy, honor your parents, observe the Shabbat. Because when you're observing the Shabbat, you're honoring your divine parent. And automatically, you're human parents as well. Buy one, get three. Jews love bargains, right? Yeah. Baruch Hashem, right? Now, probably the most misunderstood verse in the entire Torah is in this week's Parsha, David. Leviticus 19, verse 18. If you read Art Scroll, it says, love your friend like yourself. David, let's get real. Anybody that loves his friend like himself, that means next time I go buy myself a pair of shoes, gotta take my friend along, buying a pair of shoes. Next time I take a cruise, gotta take my friend along. Next time I go out for dinner, I gotta take my friend along. Next time I buy myself what? A car. I gotta buy my friend a car. Let's get real. Says the great Nachmanides, Rav Soloveitchik, etc. You cannot trust the English. It doesn't say love your friend like yourself. It can't. Because the Torah would never command Chanor something which is what? It's just impossible. Unlike other religions, which are fancy slogans, pie in the sky, that don't mean anything, Judaism is not a religion. What is it? A way of life. And the Torah, who gave me human nature, could never command something which is totally against human nature. It's impossible to love your friend like yourself. It makes no sense. And it doesn't say that. You have to know where to put the commas. I'll give you an example, David. Without the commas, we're lost in space. I had a grandfather that lived with us. So one day I knocked on his door, right before dinner time. I had a knife and my fork in the hand. I said, let's eat, Grandpa. He jumped out the window. It's a good thing that we lived on the ground floor. I tried again. Let's eat, Grandpa. Now you're talking, Sonny. What's for dinner? I don't want to eat my grandpa, Avi. Let's eat, Grandpa. Without the commas, you're lost. If you look at the text, it says, V'haftorah, comma, love your friend, kamocha, because he's just like you. It doesn't say love your friend like yourself. That's impossible. It says, V'haftorah, comma, love your friend. Why should I love him? Love your fellow Jew. He is just like you. Not love him like yourself. It doesn't say that, Sarah. Love your fellow Jew because he's just like you. What do you mean he's just like me? He doesn't look like me. He doesn't smell like me. What do you mean he's like me? Look at the end of the verse, Ani Hashem. What does Ani Hashem mean? I am God. What has God got to do with it? Love your friend, because he's just like you. And by the way, I am God.
God created it.
We all have a godly soul. I'm a soul man. All of us have a piece of God in him. God says, love your friend because he's just like you. But he doesn't look like me. Ani Hashem. His bodysuit is different. Don't confuse me with my spacesuit. But we all have a piece of God inside of us. Ani Hashem. Therefore I have to love him. Not like myself, that's not possible. But I have to love him because he's just like me. Ani Hashem. The most misunderstood verse in the entire Torah. Terrible injustice. Because people read the English, they say, come on, is the Torah serious? Let's get a terrible injustice, David. You got to write a letter to Art Scroll, Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. They got to change the interpretation. It's terrible. 1916 Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. People read that. What is the Torah serious? Don't give the Torah a bad rap. Doesn't say that. You look at Leviticus 19:18, the Hebrew. Love your friend because he's just like you. Not like you, because he's just like you. He doesn't look like me. Ani Hashem. We all have a godly soul in us. And therefore, we have to love each other. We're all connected. That's the message. Rabbi Akiva said, Zeh klal godel b'Torah. The greatest mitzvah in the Torah is to love a fellow Jew. Ani Hashem. What does Ani Hashem got to do with it? I gave you one explanation. Says the Baal Shem Tov. If you love a fellow Jew, you're also loving God. Jews love bargains. It's a twofer. The Haftorah, Kamoch, Ani Hashem, love your friend, he's just like you. Ani Hashem, what does Ani Hashem got to do with it? Says the Baal Shem Tov, quoted by the Baal Tanya. When you love a fellow Jew, God says, who are you loving? God. How do you love God? By love of, how do you love God? Oh, I love you, God. How? By loving a fellow Jew, by doing acts of chesed to a fellow Jew, you're loving God. To smile on a fellow Jew. Some people just can't smile. They're like constipated. You smile on a fellow Jew. Who are you loving? God. You don't know that. Any act of kindness you do for a fellow Jew, you're doing a kindness for what? For the Creator. When a parent sees you're doing an act of kindness to his child, doesn't the parent feel good? The parent, every time you do an act of kindness to one of his children, he feels good. So let's remember that. Every act of kindness that we do, you're loving a fellow Jew, and you're also loving what? God. Says the Baal Shem Tov, it's two sides of the same coin. You love God by loving a fellow Jew. You love a fellow Jew by loving God. Powerful message over here. Powerful message. This mitzvah to love a fellow Jew plays out in so many different ways. To speak Lashon Hara is a terrible sin. The Rambam says to speak Lashon Tov about a fellow Jew is which mitzvah? Love a fellow Jew. If you speak good about a fellow Jew, you compliment and praise him, you're doing which mitzvah? Loving a fellow Jew. Easier to what? To speak negatively. More difficult to speak positively. But our job is to accent the positive and not focus on the negative. Very important, right? The Torah says, do not be a talebearer. Don't spread slander. Do not stand by the blood of your friend. Leviticus 19, verse 17, do not be a talebearer. Don't speak slander. And oh, by the way, do not stand by the blood of your friend. What has the beginning of the verse got to do with what, Maddie? The end of the verse. What has spreading slander got to do with standing by the blood of your brother? Why is it in the same verse? Who remembers that song by Roberta Flack? Killing me softly with words, David. Killing me softly. I think it's called character assassination. That's the verse. When you slander somebody, you're spilling his blood. Character assassination. That's one interpretation. Of course, there's more. Unfortunately, in the religious community, there's child abuse going on. Unfortunately, there's child abuse going on and sexual abuse. There's a big scandal now in Melbourne, Australia. I don't know if you know about it. In Melbourne and Chabad, where these rabbis were molesting and abusing children, and the principal was covering up. Because he said, you can't go to the police. It's character assassination. So the Torah says, don't spread slander, but don't stand by the blood of your friend. The Chafetz Chaim says this. If your friend is hurting people, physical abuse, verbal abuse, any abuse, then you cannot remain silent, because then you're standing by the blood of your friend. Sometimes Lashon Hara is a mitzvah. If the person is a predator, a rodef, he's beating his wife and kids or abusing them, and you know first-hand knowledge, then you're obligated to go to the police. That's not slander. That's saving innocent lives. The Chafetz Chaim said, Olam afuch ra'iti. Sarah, the Chafetz Chaim, who wrote the book on what? On Lashon Hara. He said it's an upside-down world. He said this in 1902 when he wrote the Mishnah Brura, Chafetz Chaim, about when people are not allowed to speak Lashon Hara, they shoot their mouth off. When you're obligated to speak Lashon Hara, then they become frum. Masha, upside down world, says the Chafetz Chaim, wrote the book on Lashon Hara. You're not allowed to talk Lashon Hara, they shoot their mouth off. When you have to talk, all of a sudden the Yetzer Hara says what? Be frum. And let the person fall into a pach zevel. How do you say that? Garbage can. And for instance, Chafetz Chaim says, for instance, first-hand knowledge. You are in business with this guy, and he swindled the pants off of you. He robbed you blind. When you shook hands with him, you had to count your fingers. You broke up the partnership. Years later, a guy asked you, listen, you are in partners with Yankel Schmerel. Many years you were in partners with him. Was he honest? What kind of partner was he? Avram, I can't speak Lashon Hara. There was a swindler. Lashon Hara lemonade. Then, Chafetz Chaim says, then what, Chanoch? You have to say. You have to have first-hand knowledge. The guy robbed me blind. Why do you have to say that for? Why is that Lashon Hara? Why? There's a toilet. You don't want the other guy to get robbed blind. Don't stand by the blood of your friend. If there's a toilet, you have to talk. Another example. A lady gets engaged to a chassan, right? Right? And the chassan looks like a nice guy, but his rabbi knows that he's a kleptomaniac or a psychopath, but he puts on a good show, right? So the Kala's parents go to the Rosh Yeshiva. They said, well, this boy looks so nice, such a good learner. And the rabbi knows he's a psychopath. And what's the rabbi? Well, I can't talk. Oh, he's such a good boy. You have to talk. You have to say the guy's a psychopath. That's not Lashon Hara. You want the poor woman to get AIDS or VD or what? Or to be beaten? When you have to talk, then they don't talk. Beinish. upside down world, says the Chofetz Chaim. These innocent kids that are being abused in Melbourne and Sydney and over here, and the rabbis are covering it up. They'll say it's Lashon Hara. It's not Lashon Hara. These people are predators. These victims are in danger of being what? Destroyed, physically and emotionally. You must talk. And you must go to the police. Don't stand by the blood of your friend. What a powerful message.
And how do you prepare yourself to talk?
Well, you have to have first-hand knowledge.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
You have to have first-hand knowledge. Right? You know that this guy has a temper and he covers it up, and you know, and they ask you for advice, you have to say, this guy has a short fuse, beware. That's not Lashon Hara. You want the poor woman to be abused, the wife, to talk. And many, many marriages have been what? Destroyed lives because the rabbi and the doctor and the psychiatrist refuse to what? Speak up.
Yeah. That's true.
Powerful message over here. When Lashon Hara is a mitzvah, you have to have first-hand knowledge. You have to ask a rabbi before you open. Very, very important.
When is it a mitzvah?
We just said, if you know that this guy is an abuser or a kleptomaniac or a psychopath, and they ask you advice about, he's marrying this woman, right? Yeah. And the Kala asks you, what kind of boy is he? You know first-hand knowledge. You're going to lie and say he's a good boy when you know that he's what?
What if they don't ask? Should you?
That's a great question, Maddie. Let's say they don't ask. That's a great question. Maddie, I think you stumped me. If they ask and you have first-hand knowledge, Chanoch, you must speak up. But Maddie, let's say they don't ask. You stumped me.
There was a guy today.
If you don't ask and you know for sure, that's a very thorny, delicate issue. You know for sure that this guy is a maniac. If you know for sure first-hand knowledge, and even if they don't ask, I think you're obligated to tell.
It's a responsibility.
Lo samot adam re'echa. Do not stand by the blood of your friend.
Exactly. You know what?
Rabbi Vad Yosef, even if you're not asked, I take it. I just remembered the tshuva. Vad Yosef the tshuva. He has a tshuva. A person applied for a driver's license to drive a bus for the city or for the school. And you are the doctor, you know that this person has, what's it called, bipolar? Epilepsy, bipolar. Rabbi Yosef says, even though you're not asked, you have to go to the authorities and speak up. This guy's bipolar, he's an epileptic, you can't give him a license. So according to Rabbi Yosef, even if you're not asked, Maddie, he has wide shoulders, I can rely on him. Even if you're not asked, you know for sure that this person is a potential danger to himself and others. Even if you're not asked, Bainish, you have to what? Cough it up and go to the authorities. Tshuva Rabbi Yosef Zecher Tzadik Avracha. That's what he says. Okay. Okay. Very interesting. Now, this week's Parsha, again, Leviticus 19:23. Sarah, it's always read the week of what? Yom Ha'atzmaut. Leviticus 19:23 says, when you come to the land of Israel, you shall plant fruit trees. So the Rachaim HaKodesh says that it's a positive mitzvah to come to the land of Israel, plant fruit trees, observe the law of Orla. First 3 years you can't eat the fruit. So again, Leviticus 19 always read the week of Yom Ha'atzmaut, and there the Torah commands us to come to the land of Israel. One mitzvah, mitzvah goreret mitzvah. How do you say that in English? One mitzvah what? Come to the land of Israel. The second mitzvah is what? Plant fruit trees. And the third mitzvah is observe the law of Orla. The fruit tree, the first 3 years, you can't eat the fruit. Make aliyah, plant fruit trees, observe the law of Orla. Again, the Parsha is always read the week that Yom Ha'atzmaut comes out on. There's a mitzvah to plant fruit trees in the land of Israel. Who are we imitating? When you plant a fruit tree in Israel, who are you imitating? Hashem. What did God do in the Garden of Eden? What did he do? He planted fruit trees in the Garden of Eden, which is somewhere in Israel. When you plant a fruit tree in Israel, what are you doing? Imitating the big boss. The human being is compared to what? Fruit tree. Avi. Parshat Shoftim, Deuteronomy 17 compares a human being to what? To a fruit tree. What's the connection, Elisheva? Just like a fruit tree needs a lot of TLC to grow, you don't talk to your plants. It's not a joke. If you talk to your plants, they're healthy. I'm not making this up. Trees, plants need a lot of TLC. How do you say that in English? Tender loving care. It's a fact. You can ask any botanist. If you ignore your tree and plant, it will die. You have to show your trees and plants attention. Well, if that's true with a tree and a plant, it's certainly true with what? A human being. A human being needs a lot of TLC to grow properly. Right, Nechama? A lot of TLC, a lot of loving attention. Otherwise, the child will not develop. Talk to your trees, but more important, talk to your children. Talk to your friends. Show them that you appreciate them, that you value the relationship. Some people, it's hard to get a compliment out of their mouths. Every time you compliment another Jew, says Rambam, which mitzvah are you doing, Avi? Love your fellow Jew. The Rambam, Hilchas, you can look it up. Hilchas Deyu, chapter 6. Every time you say a kind word to a Jew, you're doing the mitzvah. Love your fellow Jew. He is just like you. Not like you, come on. Because he's just like you. Some people, easy to criticize, but they get a compliment out of their mouth, they're like constipated. Especially husband and wife should compliment each other to show their appreciation to each other. Very important. Very important. Now, very strange, at the end of the Parshat, speaks about what? The laws of incest. Terrible sin, incest. But what's very strange, the Torah calls the act of incest chesed. Are you with me, David? Leviticus 20, Pasuk 17, says a man that will take his sister in marriage, incest, and the Torah calls it chesed. What does chesed mean? What kind of kindness? The act of incest, Yehuda. What did the Torah call it chesed? So Rashi says something incredible. How did the first human beings propagate? Is that the right word? Procreate? Incest. Cain and Hevel, who did they marry? Their sister. So Rashi says that there's a pasuk in Tehillim 89, Olam Chesed Yiboneh. God built the world through chesed, through incest. Elisheva, are you getting this? Tehillim 89 says God built the world through incest. Sarah, I'm not hallucinating. Tehillim 89 says Olam Chesed Yiboneh. God built the world through chesed, through incest. So Rashi says God did an act of chesed. He allowed Cain and Hevel to marry their sisters, even though it's incest. God did an act of chesed to allow the human race to what? Propagate. Is that the right word? Multiply. You hear this, David? Rashi. Now, let's think. The creator of the universe, couldn't he figure out another way to propagate the universe? Couldn't he get some people from Las Vegas, Cain and Hevel, that had to marry their sisters? What is Rashi talking about? Tehillim 89, the world was built through incest. God did an act of kindness where he allowed Cain and Hevel to marry their sister, which is incest. But God did an act of kindness to allow the human race to what? Multiply. Couldn't the Creator figure out another way, Lillian, for the human race to multiply? Dafka through incest? You don't think that's strange? What's the message, David?
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. There's always the exception.
But what's the message, Sarah? The Torah's GPS. It's not. Why should I care? Cain married his sister. Okay, who he married? What's the message? No one should say, my yichus is better than your yichus. How do you say yichus in English? Pedigree. You know who I come from. You come from the other side of the tracks. I cannot associate with you. Look at my pedigree and look at yours. Ragdoll, other side of the track. No, the entire human race comes from the same low beginnings. No one should say, my pedigree or background is superior to yours. Don't look down on any human being. We all come from the same low, humble beginnings. What a powerful message, Avi. Down, boy. You want to get arrogant and stuck up? Blue beard, blue blood. What's it called? Why is it called blue blood? Why is it called blue blood? No, really, why is it called blue blood?
Because the royalty.
But why blue blood? Why blue?
Could be purple.
David, really, why blue blood? But that's the message of the Torah. There are no blue bloods. The entire human race comes from the same low, humble beginnings. And therefore, each person should be judged on what they are, not their great-great-grandpappy. Doesn't matter. Don't look at yichus. Right? Don't boast and don't brag. You want to do a shidduch? You were born on the wrong side of the tracks. You're not for me. Down, boy. We both come from the incestuous act of Cain and Hevel and their sisters. What a powerful message. Powerful message. Why the human race was created, dafke from what? Incest.
Twice.
What do you mean? Cain and Hevel?
No, it's Noah and his daughter.
No, you mean Lot. That's later on. But that's later on. That's for Shavuos. Don't rush me. That's Shavuos. Lot and his daughter. But that's later on. But here we're getting at the beginning of mankind. Right from the get-go. Right from the get-go. Now, the end of the Parshat warns us that when we live in Israel, we have to be specially careful to observe what? The laws of the Torah. Because, again, this is God's palace, and what God will tolerate in Borough Park, he will not tolerate in Eretz Yisrael. Because if you sit in the king's palace, or if you sit in the king's garage, where's it worse? We're living in the king's palace. The rest of the world, maybe it's God's what? The garage or whatever, right? Still his world, but it's not the same. So when you're living in Israel, there's an awesome responsibility to what? To behave, to be on our best behavior. That's why the Meraglim didn't want to come here. The Meraglim were afraid. It's such a holy land, but again, such a sensual land. There's so many what? Temptations. The greater Kedusha, the greater is what? The forces of Tumah. The Meraglim said, we can't handle it. God says, don't cop out. Right? You're a big boy. Control yourself. Temptation, but the price tag is worth it. Where there's great Kedusha, there is what? Potential for great Tumah. There has to be that constant what? Tension. Right? Because Israel has so much Kedusha, therefore the forces of Tumah are so strong here. Gay parades and ligbit and all that nonsense. That's the challenge. That's the test. Hashem, or God forbid, Azazel. At Sunday at 2 o'clock, we have a shiur on a Sfirat HaOmer, a Kabbalah course for men only. So that's, stay tuned. Sunday at 2 o'clock. Sevirat, the Kabbalah course, men only, or women can also join the Kabbalah course of Sevirat HaOmer. That's Sunday at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.